Simon rented or lent me his car because I didn't have my own, and I actually crashed on the highway by falling asleep.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Mathias Wegmüller, welcome back to the second episode. It's a pleasure to have you again.
Hey, thank you, and looking forward to this second topic now.
So today we're going to talk about staying healthy as a founder. I think a topic that is often overlooked or neglected in terms of success for the company, for the greater good, or sacrificed even. So generally speaking, from your observations, are Swiss founders staying healthy?
Very interesting question, and I've no rationale or no justification to answer this question. I think in general, Swiss people have quite a high awareness what health is and what healthy behavior is, and it's not just correlated to money, even though there is certainly a correlation. But if you look at where our food is, what the organic food is, how much exercise people do, I think we have a good level overall in Switzerland, and then probably there should be also a good level in the Swiss founder ecosystem.
Fair point. You know, it's often said that if entrepreneurs want to succeed, and I mean, you've been yourself in these shoes, they have to wave goodbye to a work-life balance. They have to sacrifice their sleep or their movement, their balanced sports, at least to a certain degree, especially in the early days. Do you think that this is true? Is this a fair assessment?
Well, first of all, I'd like to correct you or say I don't like the term work-life balance. I think we only got one life, each of us, and work is part of that, and it's not against life or on the balance to life. So there is one thing, and then of course. You know me, I know you, we have a athlete's background. We know how important food, workout, sleep, right mindset is to perform. And in the end, and a lot of the entrepreneurial journey is also about performing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the base, and we cannot neglect that. We can for certain short periods of time, but quite often, as we know, it's not just a sprint, but it is more a marathon, and that's why you need to consider all those health aspects.
Yeah, I think in that regard, it's also important. Often, I think that people think, hey, performance is actually a synonym or equal to being healthy, but that's actually not the case. So I wonder, what does health actually mean to you?
Let me use a framework which is very useful in my mind, and I refer to that with big pleasure, and it's by Peter Attia. By the way, Peter Attia is a physician, a doctor from the US who does now a lot of research, great podcasts, great content on health, longevity, and all these topics. And he says, look, there are like 5 categories within health, and one is the mind. You need a working mind to be healthy. There is the body part, but again, we will talk about it's not about a performing body, but a healthy body. Mm-hmm. And the third one is very important, especially for founders. That's the stress tolerance, and how you can improve that or get better at it. Third one is have a sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. It's shown statistically that people who have a purpose in their life, they live a healthier life. And the last one is social contacts. We are social beings, and so that's an important part for our well-being and health as well.
Great. So let's focus on all of these 5 aspects. Maybe start with the last one, social support. I mean, we heard a bit about your personal background in the first episode. So where do you get the social support? What does it actually mean?
Let's first highlight maybe the social support while being a startup, because your life is work. Mm-hmm. And that means you need to have your social contacts as well in your work. So I think it's a good idea that actually your partners, your employees, maybe some of your clients, maybe some of your investors, not all, but some of them can be personal friends as well.
Yeah.
That's already giving you a lot of that social contact. And if you look at them as only professional relationship, you don't want to have private relationship, it's probably going to have a negative impact on your well-being and health. Yeah. So that's one point. Secondly, if you already have a family like I did, there is other social groups which are not correlated to work, and probably with them, you should not be always talking about your startup. So keep some relationship also as they are, but we have young founders listening to us today, or we had them in your episode, where practically their social network, their social interaction is their work, and that's completely okay. But if there is other aspects which like family, I think it's super important to also have their very healthy relationship. That's brings back benefit to your own personal health.
When you were so focused and doubled down on Qumram, how do you take care of your social support, of your social network? Did you have like date nights with your wife, or did you have like social events that you specifically planned for in your calendar? How do you make sure that you don't forget about that part?
Well, I had a lot of nights with my family, meaning I came home, they were already sleeping, and I got up again and left. So that was it's not a good part, but it was important for the family that they knew that I was at home for the night. No, it's a good point, and we definitely did not take that into account too much. Every now and then, Barbara, my wife, and I, we had things we did, or then we took out some special occasions, and I would like to recall one in February 2017, actually 6 months before the exit. There was a fintech week organized by Swiss Next India, taking place in Bangalore and Mumbai. And I said, hey, look, Barbara, that's the opportunity. The parents-in-law, her parents, they look after the kids. And we go 10 days on a business trip. But there was a lot of relationship life as well. And then, how connected everything is. We actually did not stay with the fintech group all week, but we had friends running actually Swiss Next, so we could stay with their family. So there was a lot of social interaction in that regard as well. And then again, for example, Mike Holtmeyer from Verve, previous investeer, was there. So there was also connection. It was a bit outside the company, but not mainstream, super focused on the business, but from a social contact thing, very good. From a relation perspective, good. And then, of course, all the odors and flavors of India and the different lifestyle also helps you on the health side, and the good food as well.
I can imagine, yeah. So basically, you can also play that, busy entrepreneur lifestyle to your strength. You can combine different aspects and then try to make actually more out of that, change the environment, change the people that you are traveling or going around with.
Exactly. And I did that to a big extent. I think on the social side, because of my foreign exchange year, of my travel experience, I think that is one strength of myself. For example, whenever I went to London or other cities for business purpose, I never stayed in a hotel room. I almost never booked an Airbnb for having my own apartment. I always chose the cheapest one, but also the socially most interesting one. Just having a room in a big living community, actually, nice. Because that, new contacts. I mean, every now and then no one was home and I had just had my room. But this adds other aspects. For me, this social contact is super important. And being by myself on a business trip in a hotel room, that's depressing and something I would rather not do.
Interesting. For me, it's sometimes the opposite, where I also like to have some peace and quiet moments.
It's funny. Some people ask me that as well, because at home I could, not sleep with the 3 little girls at home.
Right.
But for me, I actually sleep better if I have just a short social interaction with someone. Just having this, I grew up without TV, so I'm not used to watch TV and then have a good night of sleep. So for me, having a good conversation and then go to bed is probably the best way. And then we're already touching about the field of sleep where we go to, but on the social interaction is important, and it's not tiring for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
In that regard, I also wonder, I know that, many founders, they have their cell phones with them. They are basically always on. You probably also have a lot of business topics on your mind when you get home, to your partner, to your kids. How do you deal with that? Like, do you then purposefully say, okay, I put the phone away, I don't work or think about business right now? Or how do you manage? Because sometimes you feel needed, you have some topics and issues to solve. On the other hand, you also want to be there and spend the scarce time that you have with your family in these moments the best way possible. So how do you deal with that?
I learned from Japanese martial arts, that they always, when they open the dojo, that they put down the daily life and they pick up karate. And then once they're done practicing karate, they put down karate and pick up their daily life. So this is definitely would be a good ritual. Am I capable of doing this? No. What helps is if this other situation you go into is so intense that you don't even have that your mobile phone is out of reach, out of mind. Yeah. And with the little kids, this is definitely the case. They take you so much into, so it was a big stress factor. We talked about that later, but it's also, it just changes your mind from 1 minute to the other. And again, that's healthy. That's good.
Yeah. Cool. I like that. And if you don't have kids yet who can give you that distraction or that focus, probably just deactivating notifications or deleting Slack and email apps probably also help in the beginning.
Start karate and use a dojo who doesn't have enough connectivity for your mobile phone.
Good idea, yeah. One last question on this social support topic. Many people also say, personal relationships are so crucial, probably one of the most important things in life. I also wonder, it's very individual, but is there also any certain number that you say, hey, you can have a deep and good relationship with 5 people, like 5 friends, or should you aim higher or lower? Any thoughts on the number or the amount of good quality relationship you should build?
It's a super question. It's individual. I think there are numbers, and I know you like numbers. For me, I probably can have super close relationship with a lot of people. I think a good average number is for like a couple or an individual should be like between 5 and 10 close friends in this inner circle. Yep. I think I can actually handle 30 to 40.
Wow.
Some people might say, yeah, but you're more superficial because you spend too much time in the US, so it's never that deep. For me, and it's it's always bi-directional. Sure. They're deep enough, and I always when I for my wedding or for parties when I have to list and reduce the numbers, I kind of always get stuck with these 30, 40 people I need to have around me.
Nice, yeah. So it's a very individual thing, but I think it's good to reflect on that and identify what's the right number for you.
Absolutely. And in the founder's life, when you have to reduce those spare time, free time contacts, then you need to know who actually are your best friends and keep those relations going if you need them. And I highly recommend that. And, again, I think it's like in my case that my best friend was also my co-founder, and Simon. We spend anyway so much time together. That's, helpful as well.
Absolutely. So let's also talk about the other point that you mentioned, sense of purpose. How do you find your purpose in life that kept you going?
Well, again, there is a natural one with the kids. I tell you, that's the birth of the first child, and then the second and third. Then you don't have to answer that question of purpose because you feel it, you see it, you hold them in your arms, and you know why we are here. Nice. And then, as I said, the other one for me is really being aware that we only have one life, that we want to make most of it, that these social interactions, that you can make others' life better, then your own gets better. It's all around that. And in the end, hopefully we're on the right track to not destroy our planet, and because I don't believe we find enough SpaceX companies to actually move us to other and that's my purpose. And then the other ones, like being an entrepreneur, creating wealth, etc. That comes way after.
Okay. You know, if someone is like, you know, just graduating from university, for example, doesn't have a family yet and just is a bit lost, you travel very broadly and all over the globe. You know, what would you recommend them to do to also really identify the purpose or what's really driving them? Should they just go out and try, or what would you recommend them?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be traveling. I mean, for some people, it's reading. It's really more in the books or writing. Have writing friends, you know, that you can actually, because it's not everyone likes to talk like we do now.
Sure.
But I think trying out and experiencing different interaction and, you know, digging deep in other people's mind, in other hearts, it shows you in the end a lot about yourself, and at least for me, it's always more interesting to hear someone else's stories in life because I know my own. And in the end, it's still, I benefit a lot of it because I can relate to or I can differ from, and I get to know myself better when interacting with others.
Got it. So in that regard, let's move to the stress tolerance, the next area. Probably something that you had to deal with quite often as an entrepreneur. So tell us, what did you do? What does stress tolerance mean, and how can you actually get better and practice it?
The stress, you know, we always have to differ between the short-term stress and the long-term. And so the short-term, you know, is when before you go on a big stage, you give a pitch, or if the table-toothed tiger is coming around the corner, that's short-term stress. You have to avoid it. You have to get over it. Yeah. And then usually there is relief afterwards, and the entire system of your body recovers well.
If you're still alive after the tiger attacks you.
Or the pitch in front of the investor.
True.
I think these days that's the more real danger for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
But then the dangerous one is the chronic stress. You know, that is actually always pressing on your shoulders and you know, comes with a lot of hormones and chemicals in your body who actually do harm. And you need to get rid of that chronic stress. And I think with that, you first have to realize that you're stressed in the first place. I mean, reacting to different people in a very angry, emotional way all the time is probably a sign of stress, but also your body. If you cannot find sleep, or you wake up in the middle of the night, that's another typical sign. Or your mind wanders off places when you should be focused. No. Then it's the first. You know, and it can lead these days, and I'm glad we're talking now about this, about burnouts, etc. Chronic stress is a first indicator, and of course to reduce that, is very individual again. But again, on these health topics like doing exercise regularly, finding regular sleep, having the right nutrition, having the right social contacts. Being honest to yourself and your co-founders and team, what is stressing you, naming that is definitely the first step. And then we should not ignore that there is also a genetic component to this, that some people are just a lot more stress tolerant than others. And probably most of the founders, they have a really high stress tolerance DNA to actually cope with it. Otherwise, they could not be in that position.
Yeah. Did that ever affect you when you were very active, building your company? Were you ever, stressed to a level where you felt, hey, this is actually not the way it should be, or this is actually getting out of my hands to a certain degree?
It's hard when you're in it. It's because I was aware that this is actually slowing you down. So you kind of also, you try to balance that or ignore it to a certain level. And I mean, I sleep now 2 hours more than when I was at Qumram. So probably, yes, I was stressed. Was it unhealthy? Well, I think I came out right, but there definitely were discussion with my wife. Are you still, balanced enough? Are you? But I was lucky enough. You never run into a burnout, or actually never had a day when I got up in the morning and I just couldn't get up, literally. So I was always able to get out of bed quite early most of the time, and go with an optimistic mindset to work. But the point I want to make is, as a founder in full drive and flow and in team, especially if you create that great team dynamic, it's always good to every now and then have a mentor to step back and look at this, because it builds up incrementally slow. It's not, you're not stressed and then you're highly stressed. That goes step by step. And once you hit that threshold, it's actually dangerous for you, your company, and your team. And so, shout out to all founders. This is a threat. This is a real threat. That chronic stress will get you. Talk to everyone who has been there. Listen to people carefully if they say they had a burnout. You probably can learn from them most because they've been there.
Yeah, I like this emphasis that you made. Like, it builds up slowly, so you don't even recognize it. And I can also feel that sometimes you feel that you're so in the flow, you don't want to go to bed, you just want to build the next thing. And that might already be a small sign of, if you do that too often or too much, there's already stress building up. You don't realize it because you feel you're in the flow, it's all good, you still recover well, but then suddenly the trigger goes to the other side, and then you're in the bad spot, right? Yeah. So I think that's really, be aware of that, and probably also, plan some breaks in between, recover, recharge. So my question here is, what helped you to, take a step back and also really recover, reduce the stress that built up? Did you do anything or practice anything now?
Well, back in the days, I had one thing. That was my pair of running shoes always came with me on my business trips. And even though I did not get enough sleep, I had this active recovery runs along the rivers of Barcelona and London and everywhere. I like running next to the water or the coastline. Cool. So I did that, and that was a ritual, and I think it helped me. And it was quite often super early in the morning or late at night. But it either helped me to get energy to go into the day, or release a lot of stress at the end of the day and actually find good sleep. Yeah. So, but it doesn't have to be running. There was actually another thing. Whenever I was home, there was the Friday morning yoga session, which from 5:30 to 6:30, and I started that at my 40th birthday. So it was 2 years into Qumram. And I actually, and I'm still doing this, and I'm glad we're allowed to do this again now. Yeah. And there are, the more I think there are several things, and yes, try to keep them. Probably most of the founders, they had a certain routine before. Maybe it's back in their childhood. Also, an important one, is good nutrition or fasting or meditation. There's several things. It doesn't always have to be a physical exercise. Yeah.
Again, here it's very individual. Try to find what's working for you.
Yeah. Or be genetically so super stress tolerant, and even if you measure all your indicators of chronic stress, they're always low. Yeah. Then you're just lucky, and you do what you have to do.
But that's a bit similar to sleep, right? Where many people think, I'm one of these exceptional people that need so little sleep. It's statistically just not very likely that you belong to these people.
Exactly. And you can test that. How you can, as you can measure your cortisol level for stress, right. You can go into a sleep lab, and they will actually tell you quite accurately how much sleep you actually need. So don't lie to yourself being that Superman or Superwoman. Rather see yourself as an average sleeper, as an average person, and you're probably better off.
I also have one more question regarding stress tolerance. You've gone through different decades, so I also wonder, does it make it harder or easier when you get older? Like, is it easier for you to cope and deal with stress if you're younger, or is it even harder then? Like, do you have any experience on that?
Well, for me, still, this is the most stressful decade, probably mentally, was from the age 5 to 15, when everything was well defined and I just wanted to win in sports and school, every exam, every game, every track and field meet. That was the most stressful part. And maybe it's also where I realized that probably a professional athlete career is too stressful for me because I'm such a bad loser, and it's always about winning. Yeah. And then, of course, the Qumram, the second part with the focus, that was stressful. But then I already had all my backpack, and my personality was evolved, and I had coping strategies with that. And back in the early days, it was just stress and no knowledge how to cope with it.
Yeah. In that regard, also, the stress that you experienced in your young ages, was that also to a certain degree that you felt that other people expected you to be good at school, to be good at sports, and that wasn't necessarily driven completely or fully by you?
I don't believe so much in that. I think the biggest stress, it's always the stress you put on yourself. And for me, it was definitely true. No, I don't think anyone expected me to be that good and exceptionally good than myself.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about the body. Talking about sports, that's one important aspect there, but what belongs to the body? What do you need to take care of if you look at the body area?
Well, I think it's also Peter Attia is there quite clear. He says 3 aspects. One is you need to have enough muscle mass, especially to prevent inflammatory disease like diabetes, but also to actually have a healthy body composition. We focus way too much on losing fat or losing weight instead of building up muscle mass. I think you're a good example of that, really aware of that and doing a great job.
Or just lucky with good genetics.
Exactly. Again, then it helps, but I think everyone, we've seen that now, or we're seeing it with our Fit. Everyone can actually build up muscle mass in a reasonable amount of time.
True.
A second one is functional movement, which is quite interesting that your joints, again, flexibility is also a lot defined by genetics, but you can do a lot. And especially when we get older, when we lose muscle mass and when we lose flexibility, it increases your well-being so much when you're flexible and when you're strong. And third, and it's a natural one, but we quite often forget it. It's be free of pain, because body pain is just. I'm sure everyone listening, a headache. Sure. We all experience it, and if you need to make sure that you're most of the time free of pain.
There's one really important thing that comes to mind. Naval always says on his podcast, whenever we are healthy, we have 1,000 desires. We want to get rich, we want to get famous, all of that. When we're sick, that all doesn't matter. We just have one desire and get healthy again. I think that's so powerful to really understand the importance of being pain-free and also making sure that you stay that way.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
So in that regard, what can you actually do, to be in a good spot there? Of course, working out. Is there any good workout regime that you recommend in terms of building muscles and also supporting your flexibility?
I think these days, it's there is so much you can do. The offers are so broad, and then again, individual choice. Pilates, yoga, CrossFit, whatever is appealing to you, and actually benefits you. So we know if after each workout you're a bit in pain, it's probably not the right workout. Yeah. Or if that pain stays on for too long.
Right.
If it doesn't help you to be more flexible, it's probably not the right thing to do. If you're not building up muscles, it's probably not the right thing to do. So always keep those 3 measures in mind, and then pick something you enjoy doing on a regular basis, but please check back on these results. I think sometimes people tend to follow a bit the trendy stuff, and it might not be the best for their own body.
I think it's also a very natural thing, right? Because we human always like to have things, easy, convenient. So there's a thing that is like way easier to burn fat than whatsoever. So I'm just going to follow that trend. And then 3 months later, I realized, it didn't actually have a big difference. I probably should have stopped way earlier.
Yeah. And then when you come to fat burn, then we're already in the nutrition topic.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
dare I say it's the same. I mean, today it's quite easy to measure what type of a diet person you are. You can do glucose ingestion, measure the insulin reaction, because I think on the carbohydrates there is the biggest misunderstanding, because it's so trendy, low carbs, no carbs, whatever carbs, healthy carbs. Make sure to know how you can digest carbs and how you react to them. And I mean, there are doctors, there are tests in Switzerland, and it's well invested money to actually figure that out. We did that with the entire family. We can all 5 of us, we're quite good on carbs. That doesn't mean that we feed our kids sugar only, but it doesn't do as much harm as some parents think. That's the good news. Carbs are not always bad. I mean, they're a fast source of energy, and kids need them, but also adults need them to a certain degree, not all the time. Then don't focus too much on all the little supplement and vitamins. I mean, in the end, it's really, we're built out. We need carbs, we need fat, we need proteins, and get that balance right first. And then again, be aware in combination with the exercise, what energy actually is used. You can do a lot of sport which actually burns fat, but your body needs to get used to burning fat. So you need to go very slow, long, and it doesn't really matter if it's a long swim or a long walk or a long bike ride, but it has to be low intensity and long, and then you can burn fat easily. And all these things, I think we focus way too much on, what is this other paleo diet, or what is this fancy thing, like you said before, instead of getting the basics right. And I think it's an educational part, not just for the parents, but also for our education system in nutrition and exercise, because that would increase the overall health and well-being of a society where entrepreneurs benefits as the entire society as well.
Exactly.
Before we continue with the show, we would like to introduce you to our new partner, Nuco. Nuco helps founders navigate the paperwork that starting a company involves. From the first consultation all the way to the commercial register, Nuco has helped more than 900 entrepreneurs start their company, and they do so at highly competitive prices. To find out more, visit nuco.ch/Swisspreneur. Again, that's nuco.ch/Swisspreneur. And now, on with the show.
In that regard, often we also hear about the term intermittent fasting. What role does that play when we talk about nutrition?
It's a good question. And I actually did not know about that before I started listening to Peter Attia. And actually it makes sense. You just give your digestive system certain breaks. Yeah. And intermittent fasting, for example, probably the most famous, the one I practice also most of the week, is this 16-8. That means for 16 hours, you don't take any calories at all. You drink tea, water, coffee, whatever, but without calories. And then for 8 hours, you just eat normally. That gives your digestive system enough of a break that then actually has a lot of health benefits on the long run. So I believe in that. From the practical experience, my wife is always also trying this out. I think for female, it gets a bit more complicated with the hormones. I think women have to be a bit more careful about longer periods of not eating or regular periods.
Makes sense. No, we often talk about food, but we also drink. So what should we drink?
I always say water, coffee, and beer is enough.
with an emphasis on beer at the end.
Well, we're drinking water here, so
that's right. That's right.
Again, liquid sugar, liquid carbs is really bad. So try to avoid them because they just spike your insulin reaction and actually for all of us. And so saying that putting sugar in a coffee might be good, but real good coffee tastes good without sugar. And then on the third one, alcohol. I mean, it can have a positive aspect on your well-being and health, especially in the social context, because it for a lot of also in the business world, but also in private world, sometimes if you're a bit introverted, etc., it can help build up relationship quickly. And so there is a positive aspect and a very social aspect to alcohol, which I always say is important, especially if you like the taste of it and the feel. But of course, it's a drug. So there, if you drink too much, there is an abuse, and then this has definitive negative aspects on several aspects of your life.
No, I understand the point that you shouldn't drink like sweet drinks with a lot of sugar in there, but there are of course also other drinks that have the taste but are artificially sweetened with aspartame and stuff. What about them?
No, I wouldn't say worse, but it's definitely not good either, because it triggers same reaction, insulin reaction in your body, and it's no, just to try to. Naturally, I mean, we have a deficiency in short carbs. That's why we crave so much for sugar and for fat. That's from the evolutionary standpoint. But we gotta change this habit and overcome these carvings for sugar and fat, and that helps us a lot in the nutrition aspect.
And also here, a book that I can really recommend is Der Ernährungskompass. It's in German. But that's like a really good summary of all, or not all, but many different studies out there about what to eat, what not to eat, and also really, takes into consideration the different types that are out there. So he doesn't say carbs are bad, but there are people that react to carbs this way, people that react to carbs that way. So you have to understand that to accommodate that for that in your diet. And I think that's a really good statement.
Yeah, and I think we talk so much about it that, we have individual solutions for many aspects of our life. And the foundation for that is get to know yourself, and get to know yourself, how you react to different situations, stress, but also what diet type you are, to what degree you are an entrepreneurial type, what kind of a team player you are. And the more you know about yourself, the easier life gets, the healthier life gets, and probably the more fun life is.
Exactly. And now really located at the intersection between body and mind is probably our sleep. So there's also a lot of wisdom out there. You probably hear or see old school people where they still brag how little sleep they need. And then there are the sleep gurus that say I need my 8 to 9 hours a night, otherwise I don't go anywhere. So what is actually right? What is wrong? How can we actually, optimize and get our sleep in order?
I think there we still know the least, how positive the right sleeping pattern is. For me personally, it's really the regular sleep. I believe that the hours before midnight are more valuable, even though that's probably an urban legend. But I think so. No, it's just that I perform better in the morning, so I like to get up early and go to bed early. I think if you're a good power napper, you can actually do some power napping in between if you just do not get enough sleep. But in the end, it's the more sleep you can afford. And I think that's an investment in your health. And we heard it before. That's probably the best and biggest investment you can make. Yeah. And sleeping is great because you dream, you recover. I think great ideas get created. You digest, you learn, you become better. And, all these fantastic things. So we got to acknowledge sleep. And I think every hour of sleep is a is a good hour of your life and not a wasted hour.
Yeah. Is there an ideal amount for you or that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I was exactly how you described it. My mom only needed a little sleep, and I said I'm exactly the same. I have the genes, and that was an excuse. And I was on 6 hours on average. Now I'm on 8, and I feel much better.
Yeah, I think also there, if you use any sleep tracker, it's quite astonishing that the time that we actually spend in bed. So if I go to bed at 10 p.m. and get up at 6 a.m., I haven't actually slept for 8 hours. I spent 8 hours in bed, but I probably slept, if I'm really good, for 7.5 hours, but more likely for 6.5 to 7 hours.
Yeah, and then that's absolutely right. And you have to be aware of that. And a lot of the research, when they say 8 hours is a good number, it's actually what they measure also the time you are in bed, and it's not always properly done. So read those papers right, because if you really go on, and then you even divide it into deep sleep phase and etc., you can be really specific, and then it can be less than 8 hours for sure that you have enough. It probably 6 hours of quality sleep. I haven't done the research properly, but I would say 6 hours of quality sleep is a really good number.
I'm not sure if all the people would agree here, but I think it's also very individual. There's actually also a really good book, Why We Sleep, on that topic. I think that was like really eye-opening and
what is his number?
I think his number is 8 to 9 hours.
Yeah,
which is quite high.
Not of bedtime, but of sleep.
Sleep time. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, again, you have to test out and see what's working best for you. But from his studies, that's like what he would recommend.
Cool. Cool.
And in that regard, actually something that also came up, and whenever I talk to friends, I'm surprised that this term is not more widely shared, but it's called circadian rhythm, or in German, circadianer Rhythmus. Can you explain quickly what that means and how you can actually accommodate for that?
I know, you're testing me on my scientific background. In general, we a lot of hormones in our body actually tell us when is a good time to sleep and when is a good time to be awake. Yeah. And we know that when we party all night and then we try to sleep during the day, then we're actually going against our own nature, even though if we sleep 8 hours with daylight, it's not good. And one is actually our inner clock, inner watch or circadian rhythm, which defines that, with the melatonin and other hormones defining exactly that. And then of course it's adjusted always by the daylight. I mean, that's then the other effect, that during when it's too bright, too much light, we don't sleep so much, and that's always adjusting, because our circadian rhythm, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, it's actually not the 24 hours. If we measure that precisely, I think it's for most of us a bit longer. For some, it's a bit shorter than the 24 hours, and we need the daylight to always adjust. So that means we actually, if you can look at it like this, the people who are close to the 24 hours with their own individual rhythm, they hardly ever have a jet lag. And all the others, they have smallest jet lags every day. Yeah. And again, the more we know about ourselves, about our individual rhythm, the better we can adapt. You can also do, when talking about jet lag, you can adapt already to that when you move from time zone, that you already prepare in the plane with the new rhythm, with the new daylight, and prepare for that sleep. That helps a lot to get accustomed to the new time zone and have plenty energy when you land.
Wow, you've done your research. That was like a perfect explanation.
Thanks. I think there are other ones that could do a lot better, but
that was perfect.
Thanks.
I think that the key takeaway here really is that try to go to bed around the same time, and don't like once at 10 p.m. and then at 1 a.m. and then at, 5 a.m. or something, because that will really mess up your rhythm and will affect your sleep quality very, very poorly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the most important point, which I didn't make. It's called rhythm, and so exactly what Seo said. Stick to your rhythm, and you're best off.
So I wonder, for sure, you've tested out things to improve your sleep. So you have any tips on how one can actually improve their sleep?
Yeah, the bed and the mattress, the surface you lay on is important. For me, especially the pillow is super important. I still don't know why most of the hotels have such big pillows. That's another reason why I always go to Airbnb. Their private beds tend to have smaller, thinner pillows, which fit a lot better my good head position. I actually invested in a good mattress and in a good bed, and it's a combination of a Hüsler bed and a special mattress, which I forgot the name. So I think checking that, and there are places where you can actually try to them. That is important. Then, as I said before, the light factor, a super dark room helps a lot. So try to be able to have a really dark room. And then we know now from research that actually the blue screens, meaning your phone, your iPad, etc., if you have that in the last 1 hour, 2 hours before going to sleep, that actually has a negative effect as well. So put that device away right after dinner and don't start it up again till the next morning.
It's hard to do, but good recommendation. So, of course, you also wonder, I think you texted me at 5 o'clock in the morning today. So I also wonder, how many hours of sleep did you get last night?
Last night I tried to put my 7-year-old one. It was her birthday party. So she was tired at 8:30. And then what happens to a lot of parents, they fall asleep while they bring their kids to bed. And actually last night I woke up around 10. I just put on my pajama and went back to bed. So I had plenty of sleep by 5 when I texted you.
Cool. I think also here, it's important, like trying to get the basics right. Like don't overstress yourself. You can probably also create a lot of stress by thinking, I have to get that done perfectly, but get the basics right, probably the 80-20 principle, and you have a good setup for a long life.
Yeah, and it's no guarantee, and it's no, but it's and again, for some of us, it's super easy. They're very rhythmic people. They like to do everything at the same, and other ones quite often referred as creative ones. If it gets too daily life, too much of a rhythm, then it gets boring. I think for the wealth and for the health and the well-being, this more boring rhythm-based approach is probably healthier.
Yeah. And the last point on your list is the mind. So what can we do regarding our mind to stay healthy?
Well, it all starts there probably. And the awareness we talked about, the knowledge, the cognitive part, we have to be self-aware. We need to know or to be so aware of the body that without the cognition, we all know that. But I think by now, we're not so close to nature and to our bodies anymore. So the cognition comes into place. So we need to learn, we need to teach these aspects. And then, of course, it's also part of our body which we can train. And then we had meditation, we had breathing. There is a lot of, if you manage to go into a flow by not thinking or playing a music instrument and just not making your neurons fire all over the place, but just give them some peace of mind, as the word says, which means the neurons are actually floating or flowing very regularly. And again, it's individual. For a lot of people, playing a music instrument helps, which I unfortunately cannot do. I love to do sports, and then again, that helps my mind. I do have some devices for meditation which actually measure my brain movements there. It's a game, it's a test, but I think in the end it helps. And I think the more aware we're also of that part of our body and how much that affects our well-being, the better.
Exactly. Yeah, there are also people like Tim Ferriss on his podcast, for example. He's very open about, testing psychedelics, for example. I've never done that because it just didn't seem to be appealing to me. But again, it's very individual to find out what's working well for you. And I think that's probably the core takeaway here. Health has some metrics that you need to focus on, but how you get there is really, there are many different ways to manage it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And to bridge it back to founders or to entrepreneurs, quite often there the focus is away from health and well-being, because it's just, you gotta be successful, and it's probably way too much on money, either funding the next financing round or winning deals, or because everyone tells you cash is king, so you always look at the end of the week how much cash there is remaining, because they tell they use terms from the body. Cash is like the blood in your system, if you're and and it's dangerous. I mean, it's true, but we had it before. In the end, health is the most important, and not wealth. And who cares if you fail with your company? Who cares if you fail many times? As long as you can stay healthy and avoid pain, and then it's a rich life. Then it's a very good life. And let's keep that in mind also as entrepreneurs. And I think there are many aspects as an entrepreneur which help you, because you are curious, you want to know, performance is somewhere in your mind, and use that also to explore, to be curious about your own body, about your own mind, and try to measure and try to improve day by day, and then you're healthy and well, and most likely also more successful.
Yeah, and if you're still healthy, I think it's perfect what you just said. If you're healthy, you can go out and try again. If you're in pain and you fail, it's almost game over to a certain degree.
Yeah. I mean, your entrepreneurial journey is probably not a very exciting anymore. Yeah.
Still, sometimes I really wonder, there are really smart people in the startup ecosystem. I mean, brilliant people that I really look up to, but then still you feel like they are so smart, they do so many cool things, but then on the health level, it just doesn't seem to click for them, doesn't seem to work, and they don't seem to get that thing under control. Is there anything that you could recommend to these people that, are brilliant in very specific areas, but just somehow don't find the right angle, the right spot for themselves in terms of the overall health and well-being?
Well, we probably would have to ask them. I don't think they realize that. I think they're in full control of their life. I would say they probably would consider themselves healthy, because again, we had it before. It's when you're free of pain and you're free of disease, you don't have to take any medicine, any drugs. I mean, even the WHO, by definition, that's already health. If you don't have any disease and you're free of pain, then you're healthy. So I would say they probably see it a bit that way. But the awareness has to come, because otherwise, if they get into pain or they lose flexibility or they get stressed out, and so then they don't have any coping strategy in place because they're not aware of it.
Right. Yeah, and then your life quality pretty much diminishes to a certain degree.
Yeah, and then it's hard, Then it's hard, but then we can always hope that they're entrepreneurial and smart and can adapt fast.
Yeah, that makes sense. And entrepreneurs, they also love to track things, to be metric driven, whether they want it or not. So there are many tracking devices out there. Without really having to recommend any specific device, maybe we can focus on the metrics that you would focus on to measure health. So what metrics do you think are appropriate to track and to focus on in that regard?
I mean, I always know, that comes from the sport. I always know my heartbeat. I always know what is my resting heartbeat, what is my anaerobic heartbeat, what my aerobic. So it doesn't really, I mean, the resting heartbeat gives me an indication of how well I'm rested. Otherwise, I think you have a lot of qualitative feedbacks, which I would give as much credit as the hard measurable ones. I do have an Apple Watch, but it's an early version, so there's not much tracking on myself. But you get a lot of qualitative feedback, which is when you look in the mirror in the morning and in the evening. If you look in the mirror when you put on your swimming trunks for the first time in the upcoming summer season, the way people comment when you haven't seen them for a long time, there is usually some comment, hey, oh, you've changed, oh, you have gray hair, and usually that it's not so far from the wrinkles, and hey, you look really old, or the other way as well. Hey, you look good. Hey, look, what happened to you? Hey, and I think take these qualitative inputs from your mirror or the other people serious, and of course they're experts in tracking device. You are one yourself. Use that if you're more reliable on quantitative feedbacks. Use that and again, try always to be a better version of yourself. Don't compare these measures with others because it's individual. And as long as we see that this way and we are always competing with our own best version of ourselves, we all be winners.
Exactly. I really like the more qualitative approach because, you can also overtrack things and drive yourself crazy. So...
And then sometimes you might specialize in this one measure because you have the device to measure it and you focus only on that, and the overall health system is actually decreasing and has the adverse effect of what you actually wanted.
That actually brings me to the conclusion question. Was there any single big mistake that you made when being a founder in terms of your health that you regret you made?
Well, on the sleep, probably I would say because there was work to be done, there were kids to take care of, and I didn't know enough about sleep. I knew how important exercise and nutrition was, but on the sleep, as I said, I already had the excuse with my mom only needs little sleep, so I only need little sleep, and I think I was lucky that I still managed to sleep, but there were a few incidents where I fell asleep in situations where I should not have fallen asleep. Some were harmless because I just passed through the end station of the train. I should have gotten out, so it was costly, and then it cost me a lot of sleep again because that delayed my actually return home. True. But there also was an incident actually already before the journey. I would like to share that how deadly it could end with a lack of sleep. I was busy in the Unique time, and I had a handball event which I run as the president, and then I needed to drive back by car, and Simon rented or lent me his car because I didn't have my own, and I actually crashed on the highway. By falling asleep, and I was tired. I was fully aware. I already had the windows open and the radio full on, and I was lucky then. But I did not really learn the lesson. Well, the lesson I learned is that I don't drive when I'm tired. But
that's also a conclusion.
But I probably should have learned that I just need a bit more sleep.
Yeah. Wow, really powerful story. And I mean, if you focus on one thing, I think there's not one thing that stands out that is the most important. It's really a balance of all the different aspects that you mentioned. But if you still had to choose one, sleep would probably be the one.
Yeah, it's the most under-researched, underestimated, and and it's an easy one. It's not changing your diet, changing your behavior on exercise. It's changing every behavior is a It's a big challenge. It's tough on us. It's hard.
Yeah.
But if you tell someone, hey, all you need to do is get 2 hours more sleep,
Right.
then probably, the resistance is quite low and people would do that. So let's do that. And,
Exactly.
And and it's just, neglect the last hour of handy and tablet time and go to sleep.
Exactly. So to wrap up this episode, we have some rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready?
Sure.
Favorite exercise at the gym or at Aurum?
Pull-ups.
Pull-ups, wow.
Yep.
Why?
I think it's the most fantastic single exercise which uses all your body and it's cool exercise.
Nice. Most hated exercise?
Swimming.
Yeah, I agree on that one. Low carb or low fat?
Depends. It's not a good answer. For me personally, it's because I know what my diet is low fat. I'm on carbs, it doesn't matter so much.
Fair point. Do you have a favorite cheat meal?
No.
And the last one, Zurich, Bern, or another city?
Biel. Thanks for giving me that. I'm originally from Biel, or a small town out of Biel. I spent 18 years in Zurich. I founded Qumram in Zurich, and I still have a lot of friends and contacts in Zurich, and I think it's a great city. But if the question would have been Zurich or Bern, it would always go to Zurich. But Biel is, for me, the most diverse, most global city, at least in the canton of Bern. Yep. And maybe if you look at very broadly at creativity, artists, entrepreneurs, special people, I think Biel has a lot to offer also on a national and maybe even international level.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's a perfect point to end today's show. Thank you so much for stopping by. We wish you all the best, lots of success with whatever you will tackle in the future. And looking forward to seeing you again very soon.
Hey, thanks. Thanks a lot, Silvan. Always great, listening to your podcasts. And now the ones we did together is probably not one I'm going to be listening to, but I hope we inspired or triggered some thoughts in the audience. And, always, as I said, reach out to Silvan or myself if you have further questions, because we are happy to answer, to go deeper, or to clarify where we were not so clear in this podcast.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
This episode was brought to you by Swisspreneur's main partner, Clara Business, the digital all-in-one solution for small businesses. Managing internal processes manually and on paper wastes an incredible amount of time. That's why Clara digitizes everything, allowing you to focus on what really matters, your core business. Go to clara.ch to find out how your business administration can be simpler, faster, and more efficient. Again, that's clara.ch.